that direction, 40 to 72 hours in advance of the meeting, as part of us and the public being informed of what's going to be happening in the meeting and what we're going to be approving.
You and I agree.
So I wouldn't want to go down the path of talking about the 48 hours after the meeting and all of that. I would actually like us to get clarification from council. That would be my recommendation after hearing the discussion today.
Yeah, I tend to prefer the council for it's not put in the draft minutes.
It was one of, recommended originally not to put in draft minutes.
Yeah, that's what I recall. But because there's, do you recall that same thing?
No,
or you're not recalling that. So that's why I think
it's in the minutes of a board meeting.
So perhaps a quick email to Bill, where we get it back in writing, what his recommendation is per the Brown Act for our requirements.
Context is very important because it depends how you phrase the question.
Thank you. No,
and posting, you use two words when you just started off your last dialogue. You talk about posting, which I'm all in favor of, and then we talk about distribution. Well, I don't agree, because we do distribute the draft minutes to at least to the 5, and that's when I say but we agree on the point. As long as they're available, I'm fine. The Brown Act's fine, I'm fine, you're fine.
And Peter, I concur with you and Katrina on the fact that once the board packets, the binders are completed, which I'm under the impression it really goes up to that last Friday or before, depending on the work hours, then it is absolutely, the public can see it. But you always rattle off these other organizations and associations that you deal with, and then you refer to the board supervisors and this and that. We're a little tiny rec and park district with part-time employees, so we're not high-end, high-tech, and it's hard to get a lot of this accomplished. So we need to come to some sort of compromise with how we can make this available without having the office staffed on weekends. For someone to stay here so the public can support binders.
It's dead easy. You just put it online, and she doesn't have to do it.
But I want to refer back to earlier. Not everybody has internet access. If we didn't have a website, we wouldn't have this online. So how do we get around that?
What the Brown Act says about that is that you can request by post, and you can have a standard request.
But we don't know we can't do it in 70 because the 72 hours encompasses a weekend because our meetings.
No, a standard thing by mail, by post, and it refreshes every January, which I hope those of you who get it by mail put in your request in January to get it renewed for the year. The request is good for a year, and the administrator is required to mail it to those people.
I understand that concept, but when it's not ready until Friday afternoon before the Monday evening board meeting, then
I get Friday mail on Saturday. I have no problem.
But then, the basic decision would be setting absolutes as far as deadlines, because it's not even barely possible to get this packet out. For instance, Peter, you sent a lot of things to the chair at 1:59 p.m. on Wednesday last week. I work, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's no time for whether it's paper, PDF, mailed, unmailed. It's not possible for a 20-hour employee.
All of those requests were second, third, fourth, or fifth time I requested it. Some of those requests I requested back in August, September, October, November. And I assume you don't throw them away.
Every one of your requests, and we've talked about this, you and I, every request we've brought up in a board meeting in one form or another.
Absolutely not.
Yes, and you and I sat outside after the meeting, and I labeled all the requests. And I said, didn't we address all those? And you said yes. Now you're saying no.
It's sort of like the good example was the board training request. You did not put it on as an agenda item. So there was an agenda item. It was a monetary thing that required a decision. You took it up as a casual, did you have this thought last week or something like that? And so we talked it around the table. Everybody said, great idea. We voted, yes, do it. And it required authorizing $250. We all said, okay. So we voted on that. We took an action, voted on it. It was a monetary one. The public hadn't been advised that was going to be there. And worse yet, 3 months passed, and since it wasn't an action item that went down as an action item, Diane thought I was going to do something later on, and I thought she was going to do something later on. If it had been an action item, then we could have had it on as old business. It's a reminder to the administrator and to the chair that when they're going to look at what is old business for this month, it should still be there. It should be an old business item because it came up in October. October. And then it was ignored in November and December, and it was only this time that I asked for it again, which you did.
Wait, how did you say it was ignored? You just said we talked about it. You just said, and we brought it up and talked
It's
about
not
it.
agendized. The law calls for agendized action items and decisions that require making monetary decisions for the public's benefit. We're spending the public's money. It's not just you and I, yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's not you and I have to be.
I don't believe we did that.
The minutes reflected, though, that it was discussed at the board, the consensus of the board was to do it, and that you were going to notify them and schedule
I
it.
believe that was actually in the minutes, that it said Peter Andrews would handle it and take care of it, and these are minutes that we all approved.
They were,
I'm quite confident, I'm pretty confident they were in the minutes from that, and we all sat there and agreed, and.
No, I agree, we agree.
And you said you would handle it, so I guess, so not only did you say it, but I think
This is where the minutes can be so much better clarified by camera or whatever. Getting them reinterpreted a day or two later, or a week later, is problematic with minutes. It's all a matter of what I thought and what she thought. I thought, since there is a form, I thought, okay, when I was saying, yes, I'll get that to you, I had already sent her the form, which I resent in October, November, and December. Here's the form, it just needs somebody to fill out what our address is and send them $200. I'm not supposed to send them the $200. So it just, I assumed that she would take the form she had.
But this issue, Diane, 4 to 5 to 6 days after every single board meeting or special meeting, she sends the draft minutes to the entire board to review. If you had read that in the draft minutes, wouldn't you have stopped and said, I never said I was going to do this, this is an action.
No, I assumed that would take.
Peter,
But you actually, do you read the draft minutes?
any action or things that are, require follow-up, they're pretty much verbatim in the minutes, so, they come right off the
Exactly.
paper.
And since
So
this
what
wasn't an action item.
What I'm trying to say, Peter, is that the board was waiting for you to schedule, because this is, and what you mentioned and brought up about this board training was that it's completely customizable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is why I think the board expected you to carry that ball, and you were like, yeah, we thought you were taking care of that.
I didn't know I had that latitude.
Okay.
I'm
If you'd
sorry,
like
they
to
didn't read that
be
very
the
carefully.
assistant administrator, I'm happy to do it. Is that my new?
No, I can call and customize that meeting any way I want, I
Yes,
suppose.
right.
But I don't see how
There was
valuable that would
confusion.
be.
And what I'm saying is the confusion over the interpretation of the minutes was because they weren't properly agendized. And that is what happens with all the items I ask you. You don't put any of them on the agenda. I've put probably 25 items
They
across.
don't need, a lot of those things don't need to be on the agenda. Remember, you and I talked, and I said, in board reports, somewhere in the agenda, everything you brought up has come back up, and you agreed with me that yes, everything you brought to me, and now you're saying no, so which way is it?
Look, none of the ones I asked for this month, Captain.
We're not there yet, we're not in the board reports yet.
Seems like we got off of what is
Thank you.
still an important topic on posting the draft minutes. Yeah, I think, so that's where this started.
Yep.
We're still on 5A. So there was a misunderstanding. I want to thank Peter that your comment about backup district administrator is insulting to Diane, who's working her tail off. And I didn't understand it was her job. Nobody else understood that it was going to be her job to do that. So if that would be our directive, great. We all agree with you that board training is great. That's fantastic. That was a positive thing that we all decided to do together. If it's appropriate for Diane to go off the paperwork, I'll do it. Great. I'll call her. So now that'll be in a minute.
I want to see what's available as far as, like you said, customization and issues that we want to.
So back to posting the draft minutes. Who else wants to weigh in on that?
I think we should get a clarification from council and go by his recommendation as to what we do.
But the last clarification we got from council, his recommendation was not to post draft minutes. I sat here in the same meeting when he said that.
I think in relation to what Peter brought up, the posting of draft minutes in relation to having the packet available, that is the current question.
And that question, so I have a question to ask, I guess, you, what is our
No.
What would we need to do?
Now I was going to bring that up anyway.